The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Ambar Garcia, Bryan Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
Hello guys, welcome back to The Break presented by LG. We are back here with the full crew. I am hosting today despite Derek being here. He decided to, what do they say? Throw in the towel or whatever today, but I'm taking over. But these last 2 days, y'all have been working on a very exciting project that's going to come out later on. So that's something to look forward to, something very, very exciting for all the fans out there. In the meantime, this week and last week was very, very busy, and especially yesterday, a lot of new signings and all of that. We'll get to the combine and what happened over there, but wanted to start off with the main thing that's happening later today. Zach Martin, he's going to hold his press conference for his official announcement of his retirement, which is tears under my eyes, but that's going to be happening live at 11 a.m. this morning. So right after the show, you guys can tune in on DallasCowboys.com and watch that. So for now, we're going to go ahead and talk about Osa, the first contract that came out. Initially, it was expected, or talks were going around, that the Cowboys could potentially franchise tag him, but they ended up working out a deal and signed yesterday, and the total deal is for 4 years and a total of $80 million, and with $52 million guaranteed. Nick, since you're looking right at me, let's start with you and your opinions and thoughts on this contract that the Cowboys were able to do with a key player in the defense.
Yeah, when I went to bed on Monday night, I was preparing for a franchise tag situation because obviously yesterday was the deadline at 3 p.m. Central Time to get a franchise tag done. And what that would have basically done for the Cowboys is it would have put a placeholder on Osa Odighizuwa for the 2025 season, and it still would have allowed them continue those long-term negotiations for a long-term deal going into the future. But it also, in some ways, kind of would have set a floor at $25 million because that's what that franchise tag was. So there, if you're looking at it from the team's perspective, there's some urgency to get that done before the franchise tag, and that's what they did. And fans, if y'all did not like Osa Odighizuwa before, I think y'all should a little bit more coming into today, because this is a team-friendly deal at the end of the day. This is 4 years, $80 million. Had he waited until free agency and had he been able to push that into March 12th and still been on the open market at that time, he could have gotten 9 figures out of this ordeal. There were teams that were expected to show high interest in him, teams that needed defensive tackle, but Osa Odighizuwa wanted to stay in Dallas. And there was a thought around the organization when the season ended. It was like, hey, man, we've loved having you around here, but we don't think we can afford you. And he's like, hold, wait up, but let's see if we can work out something. And sure enough, they're able to work out something. Osa Odighizuwa, big time, team-friendly deal. And on top of that, it's only a $6.25 million cap hit in 2025. That is massive. Massive in a good way. It allows his team to do a lot of things. It allows them to walk through a lot of doors that they walked through yesterday.
Yeah, I think that this goes to show you, though, when you have an agent that will work with you. And that's really the most important thing. It always is about a two-way street. Sometimes you catch agents that are, they're really like, listen, we got to do this. We got to make sure that we got all these things covered. Not that Osa's agent wasn't prepared and ready and they had an idea, but you do. If you have a very good working relationship with an agent, you could do a lot of good things. And so they caught a good one on this one. So that's very, very fortunate. We've had some here lately, though, where they're very good agents, but they're going to try and get everything they can out of the deal. And, the player has to also be able to step in and say what his desire is to be able to do. So good for the agent, good for Osa, good for the Cowboys getting that all done. This is obviously a player that Matt Eberflus, as these coaches have come into the building, Matt Eberflus, a disciple, if you want to say, of Rod Marinelli, the 3 technique is very, very important to that, to his defense, to his scheme. And he felt like that Osa was a big, big part of that. It's interesting from a scouting perspective, as Nick and I work on the draft, this is a really, really deep class when it comes to 1 techniques, 3 techniques. So maybe you're sitting there thinking, wow, man, with it being so deep, why would they? Well, it just shows you that Eberflus, the staff felt like that this player was more important than any other player that could be on that board that they're going to take in this draft. I think they're still going to take defensive tackles, but it kind of puts them in a little bit different direction this time around.
Yeah, I think Brian, when I look at it from that perspective, one thing I think about is there are a number of positions that I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to have to address this offseason. This just gives them one less position that they have to address in the draft. It doesn't mean they may not find a player that they like in the draft at the defensive tackle position, but it's one less position that they have to address. We know there are going to be other positions that are very important for them to address either through free agents or through the draft or both. This just gives them a little bit of clearance. And I'll tell you this, I think we all agreed on this show there were two players, and you guys may even have more, but for me, there were two players going into this offseason that I felt like it was important for Dallas to re-sign if possible. One of them is also Digizua. I think that's a huge win, a huge get for them to keep him, and especially at the price that they got him. But in addition to that, I think if they can get something done with Jordan Lewis, then to me, I look at this offseason, I'm like, okay, they kept the guys they needed to keep. Now we'll see what other guys they can go out and maybe improve their team with in free agency, and then what do they do in the draft? And let's see if they can get the right talent put together for this team in order for them to compete more favorably this year than they did last year.
Well, moving on to the second guy that they were able to agree to terms with. I don't believe he's signed yet, but they've agreed on something. It's a 1-year deal with CJ Goodwin, a guy that's also a very much a key player to not only like the defense, but also special teams. He does a lot on that side. He's not a flashy player, but someone that does serve a lot of good. What are y'all thoughts on this deal and what he brings to this new set of coaches, Brian?
I've had my issues with CJ Goodwin, and it's well known. And I felt like that this was always a core special teams player for one specific coach. The coach is no longer here with us. And I don't mean that as a goodbye, RIP thing. I mean that he's now with the Tennessee Titans with Bones Fossil. And so, to me, I was a little bit surprised that maybe that combination didn't show up in Nashville. It just shows you that CJ Goodwin wants to be here. He likes to be here, and he's comfortable being here. And so, it's Schottenheimer has a history with him just for him being on the staff, so he understands. We'll see with Nick Sorensen, the new special teams coach. He might have been watching tape and saying, listen, Goodwin is a good player. We can use him. This is how we'll use him. But, once again, another 1-year deal, another friendly type of a deal. But I'm always looking to kind of upgrade that position.
I think if we're looking at it from a training camp perspective, and we're trying to keep an eye on who's going to be the starting gunners on punt team and who's going to be those guys running down guys on kick team, I think Jalen Brooks and Marquise Bell have done more than enough to earn some credit in that respect. So is it maybe a situation where CJ Goodwin's fighting for a job at training camp? That's probably a question.
He had a sponsor before. He had a sponsor. I don't know if he has a sponsor here anymore.
And he's going to be 35 years old next year. You wonder about that, but they're at least going to give him that shot.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think the day of the special teams ace, the guy that makes the team only because of what he does in special teams, on special teams, has changed a bit with the new rules around kick return, with the kickoff? Because you don't need the guy that can run fast to get downfield and get to the ball. Like, still the punts, you still need your gunners. But is it a situation where, because there is less opportunity for them to really make impact, now you're more concerned about giving that spot to someone who is just a special teams ace versus saying, can my fourth wide receiver, fifth wide receiver, can my fourth cornerback, fifth cornerback actually play that role really well? And because they can do something else pretty well, it's more valuable to have that than have a special team ace.
Well, Stephen Jones and the competition committee meeting in Indianapolis is talking about the kickoff rules again. And are they saying, hey, instead of putting the ball in the 25, what if we put the ball in the 35? Are we going to encourage you to keep kicking it in the end zone? And if you're playing against somebody like Turpin, having the ball at the 35 is better than having it at the 45. Yeah. Kind of a thing. So, I think, to me, this is one of those times where you look at it and, you say, yeah, it might not mean as much, but the league is trying to force kickoff returns. And, the Cowboys had some really good success with their kickoff returns. So I would be encouraged that way. But I also, you're going to have to start to cover kicks too. And you can't have the ball starting off at midfield. So you're going to have some guys that are able to do those coverage things. You need, but maybe it's to your point, Derek, is that you need to find running backs that can play special teams. You need to find receivers that can play special teams. You need to you are taking up a roster spot, and you are taking up a roster spot on the game day active. So to have the Cowboys for a while there, it seems like they haven't had running backs that have played special teams. You look at with Zeke and others. I mean, even with
Cook.
Exactly, Cook. Even with Deuce Vaughn.
They've tried Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's if your roster is set up in a way where you don't have receivers and running backs and others playing that position, you're going to have one or two guys be specialists.
Yep.
Well, if it was with CJ, I think he fills a position that would have been filled through free agency with another player. So it's like kind of getting about the same thing that you would have found maybe through free agency with someone else. But in this instance, you get somebody that already has been here, and you get to keep working with him and coaching him under a different voice. So potentially it could be a lot better for him this year and what he can bring to the table.
Well, let me also say real quick, I want to say this about CJ. I think this last year, to me, was a little different than what he's been to this point. There was a time when you'd see CJ on these special teams type plays where he was consistently the man downfield making the tackle. Consistently. I mean, almost every single time. He had the speed, he had the ability.
Savvy.
Yeah, all that it takes to get down there and get in and make the tackle. This last year, I think, is the first time I started to see a little crack in that. And my question is just, were we starting to see a little bit of age? Or were we just seeing a year where maybe it just wasn't his best year? And it doesn't mean he was a slouch. I don't think there were situations where he wasn't down there. It just wasn't like every single time he's the guy making the play. If you're going to be the special teams ace, you kind of want to see it every single time, right? Because you're taking a spot only for that purpose. But my interest is in seeing, was last year an aberration? Or was that kind of the beginning of the decline that happens with every player?
I kind of felt like I saw more penalties than I did tackles. If he had 4 or 5 penalties, if your guy's the special teams ace, I don't think you can work through 4 or 5 penalties a game on that guy.
Fair point. Well, to close off all the signings that occurred yesterday, let's talk about Brock Hoffman. He's another one who was set to become an exclusive rights free agent, and the Cowboys ended up working out the deal, signing the deal with him. To me, that's like a sign of relief. You get it said done today. We know that Zach Martin is announcing his retirement, and he's the top candidate to become the one taking over the position. There's still talks about what's going to happen if you're moving out guys, what's going to happen with Cooper Beebe in the center. But what does this mean for the Cowboys, knowing that they have now Brock Hoffman set?
I mean, if you look at it, he's the leader in the clubhouse as far as the guys that they do have in the building that could be a potential replacement at right guard for Zach Martin. They're going to go get an interior guy in this draft for sure. So is it going to be early? Is it going to be late? Who knows? You're also getting Nathan Thomas back from injury. You haven't seen what he could do in that interior offensive line. You also factor in Awesome Richards. Is he a guy that they maybe want to slide back inside and see what he can do at that spot? There's going to be a lot of moving around. TJ Bass, too. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him. But Brock Hoffman is the leader in the clubhouse with those guys. I mean, he started 7 games last year. He started at center. He started at right guard. I mean, he played so well at center that the conversation's been brought up about, okay, do you move Cooper Beebe back to guard and do you put Hoffman at center? And so this is a really important guy to bring back. He's kind of the 6th man of that offensive line at worst. And those 6 men, they certainly get paid. Call him the Jamal Crawford of this offensive line. I'd take him every day of the week.
You can explain who Jamal Crawford is for everybody out there.
One of the best 6 men of all time.
There you go. But yeah, to me, I have a lot of respect for Brock Hoffman, and I think he played a lot better than I even thought he could play. Don't want to play Brock Hoffman for 17 weeks. No, I really don't. I think where he plays very well is if he's a 5 or 6 game guy, and he could step in. He's quality depth in that way. I think Nick's absolutely right. I do think that they're going to look for a guard here, and it could be very, very early in this draft. So I would be very mindful and aware of that. If you follow the draft show, we've been talking about a lot about these offensive linemen. We've been talking about tackles that could play guard. But, if you listen to the conversations, though, coming out of the combine, it was like they were pretty much talking about this offensive line. And even Brian Schottenheimer was talking about Tyler Guyton and, stuff like that. So obviously they have an understanding of who they are. But I could definitely see him adding more pieces, and I could see him adding a piece at right guard.
Yeah, I would say Brock Hoffman is he is a player that I think allows them to also be able to draft best player available. And what I mean by that is, and they talk about this a lot, they try in free agency and in signing their own guys to be able to free themselves up on draft day to where there is no position they have to draft at any particular time. That allows them to be more savvy on draft day because teams ahead of them and teams behind them don't know exactly what they're going to have to do at a specific spot. So this to me is just, you get a guy, he's great for depth. If you need to start him because the draft just doesn't fall to you in that way, you feel like you could be okay there. So I think that this signing is as much about the draft and giving themselves the opportunity to draft the best player available as anything else.
Yeah, they could also be in the market for, there's going to be names on the free agency list when that opens up. And March 12th, when that happens, we could start to talk about those names a little bit more freely. But there are some connect the dots players with Adams, the line coach, that and it may be a prominent free agent that he would like to have that is a guard. But we'll get to that on the March 12th day.
Let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, let's talk about what's currently happening with the salary cap around the NFL and what the Cowboys were able to do to CD's contract in able to free up some space there in the salary cap.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. They're so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's Stay in Your Car 10-minute oil change at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. That means you won't even have time to show off your best touchdown celebration. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
How do you tell the world about all the great gifts in the Yeti store? Let her rip, Troy.
All right, folks, let's get started with the Yeti French Press. Enjoy coffee that stays hot for hours in a French press. 34 ounce for you, 6'4" for the cruise. The Yeti French Press. Up next, waterproof bags. Bags waterproof. Submersible waterproof doubles. Waterproof backpacks. World's mostly water, so get a waterproof Yeti bag. Do I smell something cooking? Oh, new cast iron skillets made to be passed down like Mama's recipes. Take a steak, cornbread, cobbler's pot pie, and potatoes next level with 3 sizes of Yeti cast iron skillets.
Gear, gifts, and product experts. Visit the Yeti store on McKinney Street and at South Lake Town Square today.
Back to the break.
Welcome back. This is the second segment brought to you by blockchain.com.
Ding.
Ding, ding. There you go. Thanks, Chris. Okay. 2 other guys that I forgot to mention, they just recently pulled the trigger on that, and it was a pretty easy, same thing as Brock Hoffman, because these other 2 guys were also exclusive rights free agents as well. We got Juanyeh Thomas and then Tyrus Wheat. What can you guys tell me about these 2 guys?
Yeah, Juanyeh Thomas, I think at worst is your eventual CJ Goodwin replacement. I think at best is a guy who could legitimately play safety one day for this team. We've seen him get rotated in whenever Donovan Wilson's had some struggles in the past couple of years, or if there's been an injury to either him or Malik Hooker. We've seen Juanyeh Thomas rotate in. He got a healthy amount of time last year towards the back half of the season. He's a guy you want to keep in this building for sure. Also for locker room camaraderie. I mean, he's a big energy in that locker room. Guys love him. And then Tyrus Wheat, just another rotational defensive end guy that they've had for the last couple of years. He was an undrafted free agent out of Mississippi State in 2023. Made his way out to the 53-man roster both of these last 2 years. Hasn't really played a whole lot, but he's been really crucial on special teams. So a couple more special teams guys.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the salary cap conversation. And before we get into that specifically, let's talk about what they did with CeeDee Lamb's restructure. They restructured his contract and basically were able to save the team $20 million for 2025 for this season, this year. And those are pretty easy move that, it doesn't mean that CeeDee is not getting his money. He's getting it. They're just pushing it down the line. Something that kind of made my eyes wide open is to see how much the salary cap has increased for this year. It went from $255.4 million in cap to now a record-setting $279.2 million. You're making that face there like it's nothing. I mean, I see these numbers. I'm like, whoa, where are all these dollars coming from? Oh my God. Okay, but let's start with you, Derek. Wide open. Yeah, with your eyes wide open. What does this mean? What do you feel this does for the Cowboys with this year and what they were able to do, and now figuring out ways to find room in the salary and create room and space?
First of all, I thought this has always been expected that they were gonna do this. My expectations they'll probably do something similar with Dak.
Have to.
But the way I look at it is it's just giving them money to operate. There's a lot of money that comes off the salary cap that has to happen with your draft picks. They want to have, I assume, a little money to be able to sign, obviously, some of these guys that they want to keep. And then also, my hope is that they're freeing up a little bit of money so they can get a little more active in free agency. I think after last season, I think the amount of players that they lost last year, we saw that the results of that once they started losing guys to injury. And in this business, you have to be prepared for injury. Yeah. And so the hope is that this year they go a little bit opposite of that. I don't expect them to be like, we're going out and getting all the greatest free agents out there, but I do expect that if they can get 1 or 2 guys that really can fill a specific role for them, maybe it's a linebacker, maybe it's a running back, maybe it's a cornerback,
guard,
maybe it's a guard. I think there are some positions where you're like, if they can go out and get a guy that it may not be the top of the market type guy, but a guy that certainly can be very solid for you at a certain position, then I think they're freeing up the money to be able to give them maybe that latitude to do it. That's at least my hope.
Nick, I don't know if you've heard different from me on this, but as much as they'd like to bottom fish at times for free agents, I heard that maybe the plan is to look at more of the middle of the pack of the free agents, what Derek was talking about. Not the, maybe not day one, maybe not jumping in there and making a massive pitch for somebody and trying to get that done, but maybe more about of the middle of the board. Maybe not sit out 2 weeks of it, then all of a sudden jump in. Maybe it's 2 or 3 days and then you jump in. I'm kind of hearing some whispers that might be the case, that they're more interested in looking at the middle of free agency than they are the bottom. They're not to say they're not going to try and do something, because they did some very good things. You look at what Carl Lawson and what he was able to bring, but kind of down there, they're thinking about more of that middle, not maybe day 1, day 2, or day 3, but start talking to us at day 4, day 5, and going that route. So that in itself, I think, is a very encouraging way to go, considering how things have gone here the last couple of years.
I mean, if you look at it and the struggles that the Cowboys had highlighted last year with all the injuries, is that the depth wasn't ready to go. And so you can expect free agency to be an addressing of that depth as well as the draft class. And this definitely gives them the freedom to do so.
Yeah, I think the one thing, and I don't know about you guys, the one thing that I've learned from watching Philadelphia is you have to be able to, and we like to talk around here about 24/7, with the way you look at, player personnel. To me, the team in Philadelphia, they draft, they trade, and they sign free agents. I'm not saying you have to sign every single high free agent, but you can't just be in one of those areas. They tell us, hey, we're a 24/7 group around here. Well, you need to kind of catch up in that way. And maybe this is a change. Maybe we're going to see a more active in free agency. They got on us early about getting Osa done. Now we're starting to hear whispers. Nick's starting to report about, Micah Parsons, and then potentially. I would not be surprised if Nick writes a story and tells me about Deron Bland is going to be somebody that they're talking about getting done here. So being very proactive in that, playing in the middle of the free agency pool, also having the flexibility and the ability to want to trade for players. I think you have to be proficient in all three of those. That's the one thing I learned from watching the Philadelphia Eagles build their team.
Can I give you an example? I go back to the 2023 offseason. To me, that was what I expect them to, or at least I'm hoping that they're willing to do this year. They acquired Brandon Cooks. Yeah. They acquired Stephen Gilmore. They acquired Chuma Edoga. They acquired Ronald Jones. These were guys that were not top of the line guys. They were guys that were kind of in the middle.
Mid-pack.
And by the way, some of them didn't work out to be great players. Ronald Jones didn't really give them anything. But the point is they were active enough to where they were trying to fill holes and get guys that they thought, hey, they're at a point in their career. Let's see what they've got. Let's see if we can get something out of them. And I thought Stephen Gilmore played really well that year for the Cowboys. And Cooks has kind of been up and down. But I thought by and large, again, that's the kind of moves I want to see them make is take a shot here and there, and you see how those play out. But in free agency, it's always going to be a bit of a crapshoot. But I do think I'd like to see them a little more active like they were that year.
Are you bringing Cooks back?
No.
I think I want to go to try another.
I agree. I was just curious if y'all's spinning there.
Yeah, no.
Would you go all in on somebody like Devontae Adams, who's been released now by the Jets?
Probably not. I want a healthy Robin to CeeDee's Batman, and I don't feel like that would be more so like two Batmans being in the room staring at each other. Like,
is that not a bad thing?
It could be a bad thing.
Yeah. Could I convince you at $13 million a year?
For Devontae Adams?
Yeah.
Can you get him at $13 million a year?
I'm just going to say that he played really about 28, I believe it was last year. He's more of his value is if you look at how his projections of numbers and stuff are, potentially what he should earn or could earn. $13 million seems to be the number that people are throwing out there. Maybe that's the thing that we want to look at.
Hey, if it's $13 million, sign me up, but I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah, at $13 million,
I'll tell you this. I will say this, though, and the more studies you did on, say, for example, for Oso Digizua, there was, if over the cap does a thing, the valuation of players, he was right around a $20 million a year player for you last year. Mm-hmm. What'd they sign him for? $20 million. So maybe some of these agents are realizing, okay, this is the value. Adams, is he a $35 million a year player? Absolutely not. Is he a $25 million a year player? Absolutely not. Is he a $13 to $15 million player? Okay, now we're talking. Now we're talking about things. So to me, if that's the number and they want to do it for just a couple of years, something like that, or a year, I would absolutely kick the tires on that one.
Yeah, I don't want to kill a show idea because we're going to talk about this next week. We're going to dive into some of the names, but just go and look at the number of names. The number, like there's a lot of big-time wide receivers that will be available in free agency this year. When that happens, there's always a chance that drives the price down. It's simple supply and demand, right? If you have a lot of something, then typically the price is going to be less expensive than if you only have a few. And I think that could help you, to your point, Brian, of thinking about all those things and what he may end up costing. It may end up being driven down by all the guys that are available in free agency.
It's a similar conversation if you flip it to the running backs, because there's not a lot, and then you look at a guy like Rico Dowdle, he's probably going to get paid more than what he would have been if he was a free agent last year.
Oh, those running backs last year, a lot of them took deals that were not as big as they thought thought they were going to get,
6 to 8
and then they all
million.
proved, like they all went out and balled, and then now everybody's like, oh wow, maybe we jumped in on this.
Saquon contract.
Barkley
He did,
got raised,
That was highest running back in history.
Yeah,
I think.
it's $20 million now.
They'll be paying him $20 million in 2029, which is or 28.
Oh, I thought it was a 2-year deal.
So it was, but they added those 2 years on the end of
it's
his
a
3-year
extension.
deal.
Yes,
so like he basically has 4 years left on his deal. So,
Wow.
But that money doesn't kick.
How old will he be at that point?
I don't know how old he'll
83?
be, but I know that that cap situation is going to be shiesty.
They're not worried about that.
Yeah.
cap
They're not.
right now.
For some reason, they don't worry about that.
They're planning a parade right now.
All right, let's take our second and final break. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the things that came out from the NFL Combine. But before we go to break, Derek, do me the honors. Go ahead and read us LG, please. Tell me about LG OLED.
LG
I forgot
OLED
about it
Evo
earlier.
is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital trends say it. The LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Is that your first time doing the read?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I was about to say, it didn't even sound right. Like it sounded great, but it didn't sound
I was about to say, like, what are you
It
trying to
sounded
say?
great.
Got
It
him
sounded
off
great.
guard. All right, let's go to break, please.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a pepper thing.
And we're going to overtime.
Erica, how much have I spent on concessions?
For questions about their money, Dallas Cowboys fans can turn to Erica, the virtual financial assistant in the Bank of America mobile banking app. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/Erica by your side. Bank of America, official bank of the Dallas Cowboys. Erica responses may vary. Digital tools featured require downloading the mobile banking app and may only be available on select mobile devices. Erica is a mobile feature only available in the English language. Your chat may be recorded and monitored for quality assurance. Message and data rates and additional terms may apply. Bank of America, N.A., member FDIC.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
Welcome back to the third segment presented by AT&T. AT&T, connecting changes absolutely everything.
Yeah, it does.
Yes. So, okay, free agency starts in March 12. And something that came out from the NFL Combine, it was two words that was going around a lot of social media. Stephen Jones, he was the first one to speak to the media, and he mentioned that they were going to be selectively aggressive during Brian.
We could print T-shirts around this place with words.
Really could all in.
All
I was about to say, yeah,
we could do some.
I
good
guess
work.
that's now the phrase of the offseason.
Hashtag
right?
selectively aggressive. But I mean, they've started off
oxymoron, jumbo shrimp.
Oh my God. They've started off good with preventing certain players from going, and we just talked about them. And they tend to do this, though. They tend to sign their own, and they started doing so. But I wanted to ask you guys, what does selectively selectively aggressive means to you. What is your interpretation of these two words put together as what it means that the Cowboys are planning or attempting to do in this free agency?
See, that's what gives me hope. When I said that they would be active this year in free agency, where they have not been, is I do think they're going to find one or two guys that are going to shock some people and be like, we're going to go after those guys.
There you go.
Because we think we've got value there.
That's your hope.
That's our hope, right?
That's your hope.
But
there's your hope.
But when you say selectively aggressive, that's what it says to me is we're not going to be the team that's just going to be out there just flinging money around, but we're going to find a couple players that we really love that we're going to say we're going to go in and we're going to make it happen.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see who those players are.
Yeah.
You know, Osa Digizua, I think, is an example of them being selectively aggressive. They found identification of a guy that they want to bring back, and they were aggressive in pursuing him. I think there could be a couple of more inside the building that they don't want to let hit free agency, so that would be selectively aggressive as well. But as far as free agency goes, I think I'm with you, Brian, as far as they'll probably go after these mid-tier type guys, and maybe that's where they're aggressive.
I hope they're selectively right.
Right.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yes.
There's been some times around here where they've kind of played and they've dipped their toe in those pools, as Derek mentioned, and not come up well. So yeah, they need a run here from their pro department. You know, for the most part, has done a pretty solid job for them. But they are going to need, if they're going to be selective, that tells me they've got an idea as they're looking at their pro personnel board of guys. Maybe at the combine, there's some of the best tampering you'll ever see in the league goes on there, but that's okay. You know, you get an idea of these agents and who might be out there and who might, want to come to you for the right price and stuff. So if they're going to be selective, please be selectively right as you're doing this, because you're probably going to take maybe 2-3 shots at this thing, and you need those players to step in and play at a very high level.
Well, what I was going to say, yes, it sounds good, and I agree with everything that you guys said, but I think where they get you is that sometimes they see value differently than what the general public sees. Like, they'll see a certain player and they'll see this guy, we find him very, very valuable to us. He has what we are looking for, but the general public, the fan base, and all the critics out there see it completely different and have a different perspective. So it's going to be interesting to see how aligned those two views could potentially be this time around as opposed to previous years, and where they find that value at. Nick, I'm going to go towards you since you were there at the Combine. What were some of the things that stood out to you the most during last week?
Yeah, Jerry not talking was definitely interesting. I think, when you pair that with he didn't talk in Las Colinas at the winter meetings back in December, and then he didn't talk at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Granted, he didn't make the trip. He's just been abnormally quiet, but he'll talk today at the Zach Martin presser, whether it be during or after.
Why do you think that happened? What do you think that is?
I'm not going to read too much into it. I've been asked a million times by it. I'm not going to read too much into it. I can only take from what I know has been communicated by the staff, and that this staff has been working overtime since they got in the building to catch up on 2024 season film, trying to figure out what they have in the building, because all these guys came from different places, so they're all trying to figure out what the team is actually here. That goes with the front office as well. So I do buy to a certain extent that these guys have been working like crazy to catch up and get ready for free agency. But also on that same token, Jerry has been known to talk in more stressful situations. So I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll find out today. Maybe they wanted to wait until this Osa Digizua deal was done. I mean, when you look at it and it's super team friendly, maybe they were telling Jerry like, hey, don't say anything because we think we can get a pretty good deal out of this. Maybe that's part of it. But nevertheless, we'll hear from him today.
Yeah, I'm just going to go on this approach. I'm really disappointed he didn't get to talk on the bus, because I learned a ton on that bus.
Yeah, me too.
I learned. I think Jerry's in a very relaxed state. I think he has the guys and the gals around him in that bus that cover this team on a daily basis, that live with this team, and guys and gals that he trusts. And so, and you get a very honest and open conversation. I think the questions are excellent that come out of there. I remember working here with DallasCowboys.com, and when we'd post that, and how much I enjoyed watching that. Because I felt like I got something out of that. And maybe we're at a point in time now where there's folks out there that complain about how much that Jerry Jones talks too much. Maybe we're in this new era now where we're not going to get 90 minutes on a bus anymore. We're going to have to wait and maybe get 15 to 20 minutes after an announcement of a retirement. So that part of it, I think I really don't like, because the bus part of it, to me, I learned a lot about this football team. Even working here, I learned a lot from where those questions came from those guys and gals. I'm disappointed we didn't get to see that.
Yeah, I think for the media, obviously, it's a missed opportunity, because how often do you get to sit down with
he's the best
a head coach,
setting.
a GM, an owner, anywhere around the league, and have real conversation about what's going on. And by the way, some of that's off the record stuff too that doesn't ever get published, but it does inform the media on kind of the thought process of things that are going on. So I know from the media standpoint, that's a big miss for them. And a lot of those folks go down there specifically for the purpose of they know they're going to have that time with Jerry.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I think it's a miss. But the one thing I also think I know about Jerry is I don't think Jerry runs from controversy. He doesn't run from season wasn't what it wanted to be. They wanted it to be. He doesn't run from those kind of situations. So I can trust the fact that if it didn't work out from a scheduling standpoint, that it didn't work out from a scheduling standpoint. It wasn't some reason like Jerry doesn't want to talk. Like I've never known Jerry not to want to talk. When it comes down to being accountable and speaking, he does it. You might not always like what he has to say, but he's never shown me that he's afraid to get out there and actually take the questions and answer them. So I just take it as, hey, schedules are what they are.
Might be getting advised to.
Huh?
Might be getting advised to. It might be getting advised that, hey, let's control it this way, and not control it in a way we're trying to hide anything, but time. I like to say 90 minutes of Jerry Jones sitting in that environment is great. 20 minutes of it, you feel like, did I get all my questions in? So maybe there's some purpose here of trying to kind of limit some time to the access there.
I know we had Brian Schottenheimer. He also spoke during that time at the NFL Combine, and there were some interesting things that he talked about. And I think the way he communicates everything sounds very promising at the moment. One of the things that he communicated was this whole potential switch that could happen in the O-line. And we kind of discussed that earlier, but wanted to get a further opinion on this topic about when you start talking about, do you want to move Cooper Beebe, and what do you do with these other guys and moving guys around? And we know, like Brock Hoffman, he also has that flexibility. What are your thoughts on what sounds the best at the moment? And I know we mentioned the potential of them adding somebody else through the draft, but in the meantime, with these guys, how do you see their future?
Yeah, I think my opinion, and from what I know the team's opinion, is I think it's probably the same, in the sense that keeping Cooper Beebe at center after the year that he had in 2024 is probably the best route, just because he grew and learned and trained at that position throughout his entire rookie season from the word go. And then you would throw him back at guard. Granted, he had 3 years of experience there at Kansas State, so it's not like it would be something completely foreign to him, but making that transition at the NFL level, a little bit more difficult. If it were me, I'm keeping Cooper Beebe at center, finding an interior guy in the draft that maybe has some flexibility as well, in case there is injury that pops up in that interior, but trusting that Beebe is the center of the future.
I like the fact that they used him for a year. I'm interested, though. I would love to talk to Connor Riley, the offensive line coach, about this. And would Connor Riley walk in there and say, yeah, you guys played him at center, but he'd be an all-pro guard? He's coached this kid. He knows this kid, man. Why didn't Kansas State play him at center? They played him at guard because he was an all Big 12 type of a player, All-American type of a player. So I would be really interested to think if Connor Riley came in here and said, if you had somebody you felt really, really, really good about at center, or this was a draft like of, last year where there were centers in it and you could draft a guy. I mean, I don't know about Nick. I'm struggling to find a center right now in this draft. I can't. Not to the point I'd love to be able to say, okay, I'm going to pick this guy and then I'm going to plug him in and I'm going to put Cooper Beebe at right guard and away we go. But I would be interested in asking Connor Riley about that. If, do you feel like he could really be this good of a center, or do you think he's an all-pro guard? Something to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I wouldn't go into this offseason thinking anybody has a secured spot on this offensive line. I'm going to amass as many offensive linemen as I can get, and then I'm going to figure out the best place to put them based upon what they want to do. What we know, or at least what we've heard and what we've seen, is this going to be a different kind of offensive line because they're going to have a different kind of running game. So let's just get all the cards, and then you'll arrange them. And I think that's more how I look at it. I don't think Beebe should be penciled in as your starting center as much as he's an offensive lineman. He's going to be starting. Where's the best place to put him based on everybody else you have as well?
Well, we have to end the show on time. If you guys are watching live, please don't go anywhere. In just 15 minutes, Zach Martin is going to start with his press conference where he announces his retirement. Already a bunch of players are showing up. What were some of those names there?
Oh, a lot of former players.
Former.
Biotish and Frederick and
Tyron Smith is here.
Van Der Esch is here. Tyron Smith. A lot of guys. Obviously, he's had the career that he's had.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys going to come and pay respect. So.
Let's hope not to cry, at least me. But this is just stay around and watch that live. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. For Nick Harris, Nick Harris. I'm not used to doing the bye. For Nick Harris, Bryan Broaddus, Derek Eagleton. This is terrible. And Ambar Garcia, Chris Beam in the back. This has been The Break on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?